Hello, welcome back to Teen Story Share. This week we're starting a brand new book. It is called The Bones of Birka, Unraveling the Mystery of a Female Viking Warrior by C.M. Surrisi. And as you may have guessed, this is a nonfiction book. We haven't done nonfiction in a while, so it was about time. I'm going to read you a short description. Back when the bones were first discovered in the 1870s, the archaeologist in charge assumed that they belonged to a male because basically most people at that time assumed that Viking warriors would be male. But then more recently, another archaeologist discovered that these bones actually were female. Okay, how many female Viking warriors does it take to make a fact? When archaeologist Dr. Charlotte Hedenstierna-Jonson discovers that the bones contained in the most significant Viking warrior grave ever opened are, in fact, female, she and her team upend centuries of historically accepted conclusions and ignite a furious debate around the reality of female Viking warriors and the role of gender in both ancient and modern times. This book is dedicated to the person who was buried in grave BJ 581. It's been over 1,000 years since they put you in there, laid you out, and prepared you for the afterlife, and over 100 years since others removed the rock and began scrutinizing your situation. You have been so many things in the minds of so many people. You have been the subject of research, academic articles, documentaries, fictionalized movies, and novels. You have stirred imaginations, inspired hope, and started brawls on blogs. By all accounts, if those were your weapons, you had one heck of a violent life. I don't think the people who buried you imagined that your afterlife would lead to your being the subject of this book. In some ways, I am sad about the scrutiny your old bones have gotten. In other ways, I am uplifted and feel great promise for your contribution to our understandings of Birka, Vikings, Eastern trade, and, well, humanity. I wish I knew your name, but I don't think I would have wanted to meet you in the flesh. I'd say rest in peace, but I know that's not possible. Then the high-born lady saw them play the wounding game. She resolved on a hard course and flung off her cloak. She took a naked sword and fought for her kinsmen's lives. She was handy at fighting wherever she aimed her blows. The Greenlandic Poem of Atli, stanza 49, translated by Carolyne Larrington, 1996. Chapter 1. A Remarkable Find, Birka, Sweden, 1878. Imagine it's 1878 on the island of Björkö, in Sweden's vast lake Mälaren. A bug scientist, Hjalmar Stolpe, has hired a few local farmers and trained them on the job to excavate graves. He calls them his professors. Stolpe originally came to Björkö, which means Birch Island, looking for insects encased in nuggets of ancient amber, but instead he stumbled onto much, much more, the 1,000-year-old Viking town of Birka. With tools in hand, the men are set to open one of the island's over 3,000 graves. Stolpe takes out his notebook and writes BJ for the town of Birka and 581 for the grave number. BJ 581 is in a prominent position and has a spectacular lake view. Eric, Stolpe's lead excavator, lifts his hat and scratches his head. The other excavators lean on their shovel handles. There's one giant problem. A boulder looms in the middle of the grave. They'd grappled with such stones before, but none quite so big. Some stones stood straight up, and others were egg-shaped and lay on their sides. But this one is a puzzler. It's tall enough to be seen from a distance, and it's a full 8 feet across. They shake their heads at the idea they might roll it, so they launch into the next best thing. They start digging around it. After steady progress, pitching their blades into the earth and scooping out soil, the point of a shovel pierces through material that was once wooden beams. They all crowd around and drop to their knees. Eric directs them to brush the earth away carefully with their hands. Soon their efforts reward them with a view of the end of a sizable chamber grave and the promise of what might be inside it. The excavators murmur excitedly. Applying all the methods they've been taught, they carefully, tediously broom and brush the earth away from the wooden walls. It's slow going, and they don't rush it. After all, whatever is in this grave has been there for a very long time. There is no harm in being careful. With the enormous rock still blocking the center of the grave, the excavators decide to explore the end and its contents. With even greater caution, they clear the layers of dirt and debris that have fallen into the mortuary home of a Viking who once walked these grassy hills. The men crouch down as they work, thin layer by thin layer, until, wait, part of a bone shows itself, then another. Working painstakingly, shaving through the soil, they meticulously expose a skeleton from the depths of the late Iron Age to the year 1878. Stolpa's eyes explore the skeleton. Its 4 legs are bent into a tight tuck. Close to it is another in the same posture. The 2 are packed together on a ledge that spans the end of the chamber. Stolpa's pulse quickens. This is significant. 2 horses. 2. Someone important lies within this grave. Stolpa has great hope for a significant find inside. He steps back and ponders the boulder that hinders their ability to meet the Viking who lies below it. His mind runs through the options. Before they do anything more drastic, the men fashion wooden levers and lodge them under the rock to pry it loose. They try various positions and angles. They grunt, they push, they shove, all to no avail. It's a dilemma, but then again, Stolpa is a master of solving problems. He decides they will break up the rock with controlled blasting so as not to harm what's under it. Of course, feeble efforts won't suffice either. They must use just the right amount of dynamite to keep from blowing the rock, the grave, and what's in it to smithereens. Being as careful as they can with dynamite, they begin to disassemble the rock, chunking it into smaller and smaller bits until they can clear it away entirely. It's a slow and dusty endeavor, but when they finally reach the grave, remove remaining bits of fallen rock, and carefully excavate the contents, what appears before them is nothing short of remarkable, even for men who have already opened over 500 other Viking graves. Stolpa uses 1/4-inch graph paper to draw an image of what he sees. He measures the dimensions carefully and finds the overall wooden room-like chamber to be 5.9 feet deep, 11.5 feet long, and 5.5 feet wide. He draws in the 2-foot by 3-foot ledge at the eastern end that holds the well-preserved and complete skeletons of the 2 horses, showing them next to each other on their stomachs. Then he begins memorializing something that has never been seen before in any Viking grave. He draws the skeleton of a person that lies on its side. It looks to him as if it had been seated when placed in the chamber. Accompanying the person are 2 shields, 1 sword, and a very long knife in a leather sheath with a richly embellished mounting of gilded bronze. That's not all. He continues to sketch. There are 27 game pieces and 3 dice of bone in the person's lap. A game board accompanies the game pieces. There is a bronze dish in which lies a small iron spear and a silver-plated socket. There is a knife and a whetstone. There is a battle axe and a variety of arrows. There are stirrups, buckles, parts of bridles, and a large horse comb of bone, and a variety of iron fittings for harnesses or saddles. That's not all. His hand moves across the checked graph paper, recording items in their relative positions. Next to the corpse's head lies a cone-shaped ornament of silver, embellished with fine ornamental wire in a lace-like pattern known as filigree. It looks to be decoration for the peak of a cap made of cloth. Fragments of glass are scattered around the remains of a jacket, along with 4 large tufts of silver thread. Stolpa is ecstatic. He believes he may have uncovered one of the most significant graves in all of Scandinavia. When he completes the inventory and has sketched of all the items in the grave, he records in his field research notes that he has excavated the grave of a warrior. His mind must be racing over the significance of the find and how it will raise his prestige and secure his position and funding. In this moment, he might feel like he is the king of the archaeological world. He wouldn't be wrong. He will eventually be called the King of Birka. All right, this is the drawing he made, and I really don't know if you'll be able to see this on the camera, but in a second, I'll show you a few other images from other parts of the book. All right, here's a slightly clearer one, and the one next to it is a drawing of what it might have looked like right before they closed the grave, back when the person first died. And on the back cover is another artist impression of what the warrior may have looked like. All right, next time we read Chapter 2, What We Know About the Vikings. Thanks for joining me, and have a great weekend. See you again next time on Teen Story Share. Bye-bye.